हरि ओम। ओम श्री गणेशाय नमः। ओम श्री हिरण्यगर्भाय नमः। ओम श्री महाविष्णवे नमः। ओम श्री महादेवाय नमः। ओम श्री महादुर्गायै नमः। ओम श्री राम रामाय नमः। ओम श्री सद्गुरवे नमः। ओम सहनाववतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यङ्करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै। ओम शांति शांति शांतिः। ओम गुरुर्ब्रह्मा गुरुर्विष्णुः गुरुर्देवो महेश्वरः गुरुरेव परब्रह्म तस्मै श्री गुरवे नमः। समस्त जन कल्याणे निरतं करुणामयं नमामि चिन्मयं देवं सद्गुरुं ब्रह्मविद्वरं शंकरं शंकराचार्यं केशवं बादरायणं सूत्रभाष्यकृतौ वन्दे भगवन्तौ पुनः पुनः। श्रुतिस्मृतिपुराणानामालयं करुणालयं नमामि भगवत्पादशङ्करं लोकशङ्करं। सदाशिवसमारम्भां शङ्कराचार्यमध्यमाम् अस्मदाचार्यपर्यन्तां वन्दे गुरुपरम्पराम्। ईश्वरो गुरुरात्मेति मूर्तिभेदविभागिने व्योमवद्व्याप्तदेहाय दक्षिणामूर्तये नमः। शङ्करं परमानन्दं ब्रह्मनिष्ठं यतीश्वरं भाष्यभ्रान्तिहरं वन्दे शुद्धज्ञानैकबोधकम्। ॐ नमः शिवाय 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 नमः पार्वतीपतये हर हर महादेव। हरि ओम हरि ओम। We shall chant the dhyana shloka. मौन व्याख्या प्रकटित परब्रह्म तत्त्वं युवानम् वर्षेष्ठान्ते वसत्ऋषिगणैः आवृतं ब्रह्मनिष्ठैः आचार्येन्द्रं करकलितचिन्मुद्रमानन्दरूपं स्वात्मा रामं मुदितवदनं दक्षिणामूर्तिमीढे वटविटपि समीपे भूमिभागे निषण्णं सकलमुनिजनानां ज्ञानदातारमारात् त्रिभुवनगुरुमीशं दक्षिणामूर्तिदेवं जननमरणदुःखच्छेददक्षं नमामि। चित्रं वटतरोर्मूले वृद्धा शिष्या गुरुर्युवा गुरोस्तु मौनं व्याख्यानं शिष्यास्तु छिन्न संशयाः। निधये सर्वविद्यानां विषजे भवरोगिणां गुरवे सर्वलोकानां दक्षिणामूर्तये नमः। ॐ नमः प्रणवार्थाय शुद्धज्ञानैकमूर्तये निर्मलाय प्रशान्ताय दक्षिणामूर्तये नमः। ईश्वरो गुरुरात्मीति मूर्तिभेदविभागिनि व्योमवद्व्याप्तदेहाय दक्षिणामूर्तये नमः। दक्षिणामूर्तये नमः। श्री सद्गुरुनाथ महाराज की जय। हरि ओम हरि ओम। We have seen this Dakshinamurty Stotram. We have studied the past 22 classes. Today we will just summarize what we have studied. So this Dakshinamurty Stotram is written by Bhagwan Sri Adi Shankaracharya ji. He has written commentaries on Bhagavad Gita, Upanishad, the Brahma Sutras, but he has also written some other stotras and granthas. And one of the most beautiful is this Sri Dakshinamurty Stotram, in which he gives the very gist of Vedanta teaching. So he praises Dakshinamurti Bhagwan, who is the rupa of Bhagwan Shivji only, who out of his compassion has taken a form of a young teacher to teach, to dispel the doubts of the various Rishi Munis and other students who were struggling to understand the supreme truth. So Dakshinamurti Bhagwan appeared in front of them, seated under a banyan tree, and all these elderly disciples assembled around him, and he taught them just through his silence, Mauna Vyakhya. He also taught them with the Chin Mudra, which represents the very core of the teaching. He also taught through Mahavakyas like Tattvamasi. And after listening to and being in the presence of Dakshinamurti Bhagwan, all the disciples, they became totally free of all their doubts, and they gained that abidance in their supreme self. Dakshinamurti Bhagwan is the very embodiment of all knowledge. He is the medicine for this disease of samsara. He is the teacher of all the worlds, all the three worlds. To that Dakshinamurti, my namaskar, who is of the form of the Omkar, who is indicated by Om, who is of the nature of pure knowledge, who is supremely pure, peaceful. To that Dakshinamurti, Bhagwan Shankaracharya ji does namaskar. Also this famous shloka is there, Ishvaro Gururatmeti Murti Bheda Vibhagine Vyomavad Vyaptadehaya Dakshinamurtaye Namaha. Sri Dakshinamurty Bhagwan is that Sakshat Ishvara. Dakshinamurty Bhagwan is the teacher, and Dakshinamurty Bhagwan is our own self. So I, the Guru, and Ishvara outwardly may appear different, having different form, different upadhis, but essentially all of us are one only, one Supreme Brahma. So in the following 10 shlokas, Bhagwan Shankaracharya ji not only praises Dakshinamurti, but he also gives the essence of the teachings of Vedanta. So let us chant the first verse. Vishwan darpana drishyamana nagare tulyam nijantargatam पश्यन्नात्मनि मायया बहिरिवोद्भूतं यथा निद्रया यत् साक्षात् कुरुते प्रभो समये स्वात्मानमेवाद्वयम् तस्मै श्रीगुरुमूर्तये नमः इदं श्रीदक्षिणामूर्तये तस्मै श्रीगुरुमूर्तये नमः इदं. Namaskar to Gurumurti, who is Sakshat Dakshinamurti, who is one who has realized his own self. Yes, Sakshat Kurute Prabodha Samaye Swatmanam Eva Advayam, who has done the Sakshatkar of his own Supreme Self by waking, by giving up the sleep of avidya. When we wake up, we come to recognize our own self. So prabodha samaye swatmanam eva advayam, and this self is advayam, is one without a second. And what about this world? This world is also seen in the self alone. So an enlightened guru, an enlightened person is one who realizes his own self, and he sees this world as not different from the self. That is very important. If you see the world as different from the self, then it is a wrong knowledge. It is not proper. And that itself gives rise to all types of suffering. But when we come to realize that the self in me is the self in all, and everything is in my own self. Other than myself, my supreme self, there is nothing else. So that Advaya Atma is realized when we wake up from our sleep of avidya. So an enlightened master who is also Sakshat, that Ishvara, and who is our own Supreme Self, Sri Dakshinamurti, to him my namaskar. So this world is not different from our own self. It is born in the self, it is sustained in the self, and it merges back into our own Supreme Self. In the second shloka, Bhagwan says, we will chant, Bijasyantarivangkuro jagadidam pramnirvikalpam punaha maya kalpita desha kalkalana vaichitra chitrikritam मायावीव विजृम्भयत्यपि महायोगीव यस्वेच्छया तस्मै श्रीगुरुमूर्तये नमः इदं श्रीदक्षिणामूर्तये. So Bijasyantarivangkuro jagadidam prapnirvikalpam punaha. The whole world exists in our own Supreme Self as a seed. Just as a seed contains the entire tree, And when it is sown in the soil, it slowly sprouts and the whole tree comes out. In the same way, the entire world remains in our own self, as our own self, in that pralay, when the whole world goes into dissolution, it remains as the self. Atma eva idamagra ase na anyat kinchana mishata. Like that, the Upanishads also say that in the beginning only Atma was there, nothing else was there. But the world was also potentially there in seed form as the Shakti of that Supreme Self. And from there only the whole world sprouts. It comes out. It is born. So in our Sanskrit, the world, the creation is called Srishti. Srishti means taking birth. So the world is born. So here Bhagavan gives example, Maya kalpita desha kala kalana vichitra chitri kritam. By the Shakti called Maya, the whole world comes into manifestation. The Akash, the Kala, time, and all objects, they just manifest like a magician creating, making things appear, or like a Mayavi, like a Mahayogi, like a yogi, he manifesting the world in the same way that Atma also manifests this whole world within itself, not something different. Just like the gold manifests the ornaments, that doesn't mean gold is different and ornaments are different. Ornaments and gold are same. Similarly, Atma is not different from the world. World is not different from the Atma. The Shakti of Atma, Maya, is also not different from Atma. It's same. In order to teach us, when we are in ignorance, when we see Dvaita, in order to teach us, various language are used, different terms are used. And slowly and steadily, the teacher leads us towards that Advaita, Anubhuti, that experience of that oneness. So the whole world is just manifested by his own free will. Ishvara is not bound by avidya, he is not bound by any desires. Out of his free will, he manifests this world, sustains this world, and again dissolves this world for the benefit of the infinite jivas. So this world which we see is not different from our own Supreme Self. That is again made clear in the third verse. We will chant. Yasyeva spuranam sadatmakam satkalparthakam bhasate sakshat tattvamasiti vedavachasa yogodayatyaashritam Yes sakshatkaranat bhavenna punaravrittirбhavambho nidhau Tasmai Shri Guru Murtaye Namaidam Sri Dakshinamurtaye Yasyeva Spuranam Sadatmakam. This whole world is the Spurana, the spontaneous throbbing or manifestation or expression, spontaneous expression of that Supreme Self without effort. Effortlessly it is expressing. Just like the sun effortlessly shines. There is no effort involved. It is the very nature of the sun to shine. Similarly, it is the very nature of that Supreme Self to express as this world. And that nature is called Maya or Prakriti. So, Yasyeva Spuranam Sadatmakam. Therefore, this Puranam is also Sadatmakam, is also Sat, because it is expression of that Sat, Atma. So, this expression is also Sat. Just as gold is gold, and ornaments are also gold because they are expression of gold. They are not less than gold. Similarly, this world is expression of Sat, so world is also Sat. Though when we see it, it is constantly changing, but the essential nature of this world is Sat. So, Yasyeva Puranam Sadatmakam Asat Kalparthakam Bhasate, but due to our ignorance, it appears to be different. Also, outwardly, it appears constantly changing, constantly undergoing change. That is just the outer nature of this world. Therefore, it is also indicated as Vyavharik Satta. We can do Vyavhar, we can interact with this world which is constantly changing. It is a changing existence, but its essential nature is that supreme existence alone. So it's a very, very mysterious relationship between that supreme self and this world. To the disciples, to the seekers, this relationship is indicated as cause and effect. But once that supreme self is realized and recognized, then there is no cause, there is no effect, and there is no Dvaita in that self. Everything is one only. To one who doesn't recognize the gold, then we talk about the ornament, the different types of ornaments. And taking one ornament, we indicate the gold behind that ornament. And once that gold is recognized, then that person sees gold in all the ornaments. Similarly, we have to recognize that supreme self in this body itself, in our own antakarana, and we will be able to recognize the same self in this entire creation. So this teaching is given to us by the teacher through the Mahavakya Tattvamasi. So Sakshat Tattvamasi iti Veda Vachasa Yo Bodhayati Ashritan. Those who surrender to the teacher gives this knowledge of that supreme reality through this Mahavakya Tattvamasi. And one who gains the Sakshatkar, direct experience of this reality, such a person is not born again in this samsara, in a limited body. There is no more identification with a limited body. Such an enlightened person becomes free of taking birth again and again and dying, becomes free of this samsara, and gains that eternal happiness, which is the very nature of moksha. He becomes free, he gains moksha. So this knowledge which we gain through our senses, through our mind, through our intellect, that is possible because of the presence of that Jnana Swarup Atma only. Otherwise, mind, intellect, etc. are inert. So they gain the ability to know because of the presence of that Atma. And that is revealed in the 4th shloka. Bhagavan says, Nana Chidragatodara Stita Mahadeepa Prabhabhaswaram Jnanam Yasya Tu Chakshuradhikaranattvara Bahispandate Janamiti Tameva Bantamanubhate Tatsamastam Jagata Tasmai Shri Guru Murtaye Namayidam Sri Dakshinamurty. Just imagine a pot with lot of holes, and a lamp is kept inside the pot, then we see the light of that lamp coming out of every hole and illumining the surrounding. So if we just look at that pot from a distance, we see all the holes luminous, and we might think that, oh, the holes themselves are illumining the world. But the holes are not illumining. The holes are getting illumined by the lamp which is kept inside. So the light of that lamp itself is illumining the holes, and the holes are in turn illumining the world around. In the same way, our senses, our mind, our intellect are like holes, and that Atma is like that lamp, which is self-luminous. The light of that Atma is never goes off. It is always shining. The knowledge of that Atma is never turns off. Even in deep sleep, it is there. The knowing power of the senses, they are withdrawn when we are dreaming. And the knowing power of the mind, intellect are withdrawn when we are in deep sleep. But the knowledge nature of that self remains same. It doesn't get affected by the three avasthas. So jnanam yasya tu chakshuradi karana dvara vahispandate janami tameva bhantam anubhati tat samastam jagata. Because of the presence of that Atma alone, the senses come to know this world. The intellect can think and understand. Otherwise, they are all jada. So, in the beginning, we have to take the help of our mind, our intellect, make them pure, make them single-pointed, study the Shastras with the blessings of our teacher, and understand our own Supreme Self with the help of a purified intellect, and thereafter meditate and realize our own self. So, what prevents us from knowing ourselves, or what is the obstacle on the path of a seeker? The obstacle is avidya only. Avidya is anadi, ananta, which is there causeless, and it is infinite. Infinite means there are infinite jivas having this infinite avidya. But when we gain self-knowledge, it gets negated. Avidya is absence of knowledge. Avidya is not same as Maya. Avidya is different, Maya is different. Avidya is not cause of Maya. Maya is not the cause of avidya. Tamogun is not avidya. Tamogun is just absence of light. Avidya is absence of knowledge. So what happens when we have this avidya? We misunderstand ourselves and we misunderstand this world. That is what is said now in the 5th shloka. Deham pranamapindriyanyapi chalam buddhim cha shunyam viduhu stri balanda jadopamaстваhamiti branta vrisham vadinaha Maya Shakti Vilasa Kalpitamaha Vyamoha Samharine Tasmai Shri Guru Murtaye Namaidam Sri Dakshinamurty. Due to this avidya, we have wrong notion. People have wrong notion about their own self. And there are variety of these wrong notions. Broadly, they are classified into some few of them here in this shloka, that there are some who consider their body, physical body itself as their self. They think I am the body. This body itself is me. So when the body is born, I am born. When the body dies, I am dead. And I am gone forever, because that same body is not born again. But then there are those who consider life as as their own self. The life which is there in the body, they consider that as their self. Then there are those who consider the indriyas as their self. Then there are those who consider the mind, the intellect as their self. And there are those who consider that there is nothing called self, shunya. They say there is no self, there is no world, there is nothing. Everything is shunya, everything is empty, everything is non-existent. Nothing exists. Kuch nahi hai. So all these different expressions are there because of avidya, ignorance. And that makes us identify with the body and consider ourselves as Stri or Purusha, as man or woman or girl, boy, as young or old. We identify with the age of the body. We identify with the defects of the body. We consider if there is some defect in our senses, we say, I am blind, I am deaf. Or we identify with the defects of the mind, intellect, we say we are dull. So in this way, Bhranta Vrisham Vadinaha Ahamiti, one holds on to all this wrong notion as Aham, as I. Very, very adamantly we hold on to these notions. It is not very easy to drop those notions. So even when we do satsang, we listen to the shastras, it takes a lot of time and effort to get rid of our wrong notions. We don't give up those wrong notions so easily. Therefore, various types of sadhanas are mentioned, like karma yoga, upasana, etc., to drop this wrong notion. So, Maya Shakti Vilasa Kalpita Mahavyamoha Samharim. This is Mahavyamoha. This is a great delusion which we have regarding this play of Maya. Because of the play of Maya only, there is this world and there is this I who is experiencing this world. And we get totally confused, deluded. So teacher is one who destroys this delusion and give us that enlightenment, make us free of this samsara. So who is this I really? If I am not the body, not the mind, not the intellect, not the senses, not shunya, then who am I? I am the one who is present in this body, who is present in the mind, intellect. But in the waking and dream, I cannot identify it because of the distraction of the upadhis. But I can understand it properly when I contemplate on my deep sleep avastha. And that is what is indicated now in the 6th shloka. Bhagavan says, राहुग्रस्त दिवाकरेन्दु सदृशो माया समाच्छादना सन्मात्रकरणोपसंहरणतो यो भूत्सुषुप्तः पुमान् प्रागस्वाप्समिति प्रबोधसमये यः प्रत्यभिज्ञायते तस्मै श्रीगुरुमूर्तये नमः इदं श्रीदक्षिणामूर्तये. Just as Rahu Grasta Divakarendu Sadrusho, just as during eclipse, the lunar eclipse and the solar eclipse, we find the beautiful moon getting totally eclipsed by the shadow of the earth falling on it. So one moment we see the bright, beautiful moon, and next moment it disappears. And then again it appears. So even when the shadow is fallen on the moon is actually bright and beautiful behind it. The moon doesn't become dark. Moon is glorious as before. The light of that sun falls on that moon from another side. Or when we see the solar eclipse, the bright and brilliant sun is illumining the whole world, and then suddenly the eclipse begins. and slowly start engulfing that sun, and the whole world becomes dark, as though it has become night. But even when we are experiencing the darkness, the sun doesn't become dark. It is not that the sun's light is switched off. The sun is always bright and brilliant. Only from our standpoint, we don't see the sun. It is blocked by the moon in between. Similarly, when we go to sleep, we fail to see this world because our indriyas, they are withdrawn. So we don't see the world. And when we are in deep sleep, our mind and intellect also gets withdrawn. So we are not knowing anything through these senses. So no knowledge takes place through the senses, through the mind, through the intellect. But that consciousness or that jnana swarup atma is present there also. So we are aware of the absence of the functioning of our mind and intellect. Therefore, when we wake up, we say, oh, I did not know anything. I did not know anything means the mind and intellect did not know anything. But I knew that. I was aware of the non-functioning of my mind and intellect. So I always remain same. I don't get darkened. I don't lose my knowledge. That I, separated from the body, mind, intellect, that I am the real I. That I is that Brahma. That I is Satyam Jnanam Anantam. So in the waking state, by contemplating on my Sushupti Avastha, I have to pinpoint that Atma and recognize that Atma while awake. While awake, I have to recognize that Atma, which is free, which was separated from everything. And that Atma should be realized as that Supreme Brahma, as Satyam Jnanam Anantam Brahma. So when we wake up, we know the one who is awake now and the one who was in the deep sleep is the same person. But that same person has to be recognized properly. See, many times we see in a movie and all, the same actor does the many roles. He appears as a hero, then he alone appears like a villain. He alone changes the makeup and all. He appears like some other character. So person is same. And those who are expert, they recognize that person from some signs. Maybe just looking at his eyes or maybe his smile. One can recognize he is the same person. Similarly, that same Atma which was there in deep sleep is present even now. But we have to recognize it as separate from the body, the mind, the senses. Oh, this is this. This is what I am. This is who I am. And that I, we have to meditate on that I as Brahma. And this Atma is not only remains unaffected in deep sleep, becomes one with that Supreme, but remains totally unaffected in different avasthas, in different stages of our life also. It never undergoes any change, any modification at all. Therefore, it is called Sat, never changing. And that is said in the 7th shloka. बाल्यादिष्वपि जाग्रदादिषु तथा सर्वास्वस्थास्वपि व्यवृत्तास्वनुवर्तमानमहमित्यन्तःस्फुरन्तं सदा स्वात्मानं प्रकटीकरोति भजतां यो मुद्रया भद्रया तस्मै श्रीगुरुमूर्तये नमः इदं श्रीदक्षिणामूर्तये बाल्यादिषु api. The Atma remains same in all of the avasthas of our body. When we are little children, when we grow up to become young, when we reach the middle age, old age, the Atma remains same. Jagradadishu, in Jagrat avastha, Swapna avastha, Sushupti avastha, Atma remains same, unchanged. No, not a trace of change happens in that Atma. Questioning, that is the beauty. That is who I am. And sarvasvavasthasvapi, and in all conditions, whether I am happy, unhappy, sad, mad, sad, Atma remains Satchidananda. Chidananda Rupa Shivoham Shivoham. Vyavrittasvanuvartamanam ahamiti antaspurantam sada. It's always present, shining as aham, aham, aham. That antaspuran, spurantam, as a spuranam, as a spontaneous expression of I. That Atma shines forth all the time. Even in deep sleep, actually it is shining forth. It is not darkness. Deep sleep is not darkness. It is not ignorance. Since we identify with the mind so much that we feel it is darkness. For the mind it is darkness. For the intellect it is darkness. But for the Atma it is not darkness. When we look at the solar eclipse from the earth, it is darkness. We see everything dark. The sun itself is totally engulfed. But if we have to rise up in space, maybe go on the moon and look, we will find the sun is shining brightly, brilliantly. It is not dark. Similarly, that Atma is never dark. Atma doesn't go to sleep. Atma doesn't become unconscious. Atma is always Jnana Swarupa in all the conditions. So that Atma is revealed by the teacher. Teacher has to point it out. Unless it is pointed out, we will not know. Like billions of stars are there in the sky. Suppose you have to recognize the pole star, the North Star. And if you don't know about it, you will be just staring at all the stars, billions of stars. And you will have billions of misunderstandings. You can mistake billions of other stars as pole star. But if a wise teacher is there who has experienced the star, he can show it to you using some props, using some support, using the support of that 7 star also. Through them, that pole star can be pointed out. Similarly, the Atma is present all the time. I am that Atma. But because of the identification and confusion of the thoughts and emotions and all, I am unable to pinpoint it. I am unable to recognize it. So the teacher makes me understand, makes me recognize it. See, in our geometry class also, sometimes this problem is given that one just a segment is there, AB, and you have to find out C, a point C. But where is that point C? Somewhere on top. But how can I locate that point? So it says it is from B, it is about 5 centimeters away. And from A, it is about 7 centimeters away. So when we just draw an arc, then where those arcs meet, that is the point C. So without taking the support of this, we will not be able to locate that point. So from the known, that unknown is located. Similarly, the teacher also points out that Atma, taking help of what is known. We know the body, we know the mind, we know the intellect, we know the Jagra, Swapna, Sushupti, Avastha, we know the Panchakoshas, we know the world. So through all this, that Atma is pointed out. And once we recognize that Atma, then all this help and props are not required. Then we just hold on to that self and gain abidance in that self. So Swatmanam prakati karoti bhajatam yo mudraya vadraya. So the teacher with this chin mudra, he points out that Atma. This is the Atma. But this Atma is not one of these three, but it is one with this Brahma. So when we gain this understanding, we become free of our samsara. Otherwise, this samsara is there. So because of avidya, we not only misunderstand ourselves, but we have the misunderstanding about the world. We misunderstand the world. Many people, they have this wrong understanding that we have mistaken, just like one mistakes the rope for the snake, one has mistaken Brahma for the world. But the rope is seen. Rope is something which is seen, which is then mistaken for a snake. But Brahma is not seen. Brahma is not visible to the senses. Brahma is not available for the mind, the intellect. It is beyond the mind, beyond the intellect. So there is no chance of mistaking Brahma. But Brahma alone is appearing like this world. So we have misunderstanding about the world. The world is mistaken as different from me, as having different varieties. So that Dvaita Bhava we have with the world, that is because of avidya, and that should be eliminated through proper vidya. That is now said in the 8th shloka. Vishvam pashyati karyakaranataya swaswami sambandhatah शिष्याचार्यतया तथैव पितृपुत्राध्यात्मना भेदतः स्वप्ने जाग्रति वाय एष पुरुषो माया परिभ्रामितः तस्मै श्री गुरुमूर्तये नमः इदं श्री दक्षिणामूर्तये. Vishwam pashyati karya karanataya. We look at the world and we consider this world as different from the cause. World is the effect, and there is some cause which is different from it. But really, the cause itself is appearing like this effect. Brahma itself is appearing like the world. World and Brahma are not different. But due to ignorance, we consider them as different. Then, Swaswami Sambandhatah, we have notion of difference with Ishvara also, that I am he is the master and I am the sevak. We have the sense of difference with our teacher also, that I am a disciple, he is the teacher, we are different. But the teacher, Ishvara, and our own self are not different. Outwardly they are different, but otherwise they are one only. Ishvaro Gururatmeti Murti Bheda Vibhagine Vyomavat Vyaptadehaya Dakshinamurtaye Namaha. Even the difference which we see father and son and other divisions which we have created, it is outward division. When we focus our attention on the form, but when we understand the essence, we come to know that everything is one. When we read in the book also the different alphabets and sentences and words and all of them are different. They have different meanings. But when we have the vision of the ink, then all become one only. All words, all sentences, all letters are ink only. So we have to gain the vision of that ink. Similarly, here we have to gain the vision of that one Brahma. With that vision, when I look, everything is one. Then the whole world is one. Otherwise, in the waking, in the dream, the person gets deluded in this world which is expression of that Maya. So, Maya paribhramitaha. But when we become free of this delusion, we see the whole world as that one Brahma only. Everything is that Brahma. So that Sarvatma Bhav and that whole cosmic form of this self is revealed in this 9th shloka. Bhuram bhasya nalo nilom paramahar natho himanshu puman ityabhati characharatmakamidam yasyeva murteshtakam nanyat kinchana vidyate vimrushatam yasmat parasmat vibho tasmai Shri Gurumurtaye Namidam Sri Dakshinamurtaye. The whole world is the form of that Atma only. The Shuddha Atma, the Turiya Atma, which is Brahma, which is Ishvara. This whole world is the form of that Ishvara only. And this world has got world is eightfold, 8 expressions broadly. What are they? The 5 elements, Akash, Vayu, Agni, Jal, Prithvi. Then the sun and the moon. The sun and the moon represents the Sukshma Sharir of all the beings and all the beings themselves who are expressing through the prana, the para prakriti of Bhagwan. So the 5 elements, the sun, the moon, and all beings are the Ashtadha Rupa of Ishvara, of that Brahma. Nothing is eliminated, nothing is absent. Therefore, there is nothing in this world which is not divine. Everything is divine. Hari Vyapak Sarvatra Samana Premati Pravgata Hoi Mai Jana. So Ityabhati Characharatmakamidam Yasyeva Murteshtakam. So this whole Chara and Achara, the living and the non-living, the world, inert world as well as the sentient beings are all the form of that one supreme Ishvara, one supreme Atma alone. Nanyat kinchana vidyate. Other than that, nothing is there. So one has to contemplate on it. Vimrushatam yasmat parasmat vibho. One who contemplates comes to understand this oneness. And to understand this oneness itself is the main theme and goal of all Vedanta Shastra and is the theme of this Dakshinamurty Stotram also. And that is what is revealed now in the 10th shloka. Sarvatmatvamiti sputi kritamidam yasmadamusmin stave tenasya shravanat tadartamananatyanacha sankirtanat sarvatmatva mahavibhuti sahitam syadishwaratvam swatah siddhe tatpunarashtadha parinatancha aishwaryam avyarhitam. So sarvatmatvam, is the main theme of all Vedanta Shastra, to understand the oneness of that Atma. Know yourself and know that everything is yourself alone. Other than the self, nothing is there. Mai hu. There is nothing other than me. Every one of us is one, that Supreme Self alone. This is the main theme of this text and main theme of all the Vedanta Shastra. So, in order to realize this, we have to do Shravan, Manan, and Nididhyasana. Listen to this again and again and again and again and again. Then contemplate on it and understand and gain that conviction. And after gaining conviction, meditate and realize this self. So listen to come to know about it, reflect to understand and be convinced, and meditate to experience it. And once we gain that experience, once we become enlightened, then share this knowledge with the whole world. Do Sankirtan, Sankirtana. So Sarvatmatva Mahavibhuti Sahitam, one who gains that enlightenment, he not only gains this Mahavibhuti, this great glory of Sarvatma, what you call Sarvatmatvam. So that Sarvatma Bhav is attained along with Ishwaratvam, that lordliness, being Ishvara, because there is nothing greater than an enlightened person. There is nobody greater than an enlightened person. Even the Devtas and all the other beings and all of them worship an enlightened person only. So he becomes Ishvara. Siddhet tat punarashtadha parinatancha, and also gains the ashtadha prakrit, the ashta siddhis. Also gains the ashta siddhis. The ashta siddhis just manifest spontaneously. Anima, Mahima, Laghima, Garima, Prapti, Prakamya, Ishitvam, Vashitvam, all these siddhis manifest spontaneously, and he lives ever and ever as that Supreme Brahma, always rejoicing, eternally blissful and happy. So an enlightened person is Brahma only. Brahmavid Brahmeva Bhavati, and always happy. He is of the very nature of happiness. He becomes happiness. So Sat Chit Ananda Rupa. So thus we have concluded this beautiful Sri Dakshinamurty Stotram, one of the most fascinating texts. But don't think that just by listening to it once we have completed. We have to listen to it again and again and contemplate and make this knowledge our own. Be convinced about what is conveyed here. Should not have any doubt, any confusion. There should be total clarity of understanding. And after gaining that clarity and conviction, meditate with perseverance and realize your own self. Become enlightened before you die, before you drop this physical body. Before we drop this physical body, we should gain enlightenment. Because next birth, we don't know where we will be born and in which condition, in which government will be there, we don't know. So you better gain this while in this life form only. Strive to gain that enlightenment. So wish you all the best. May you all realize that Supreme Self in this lifetime only. Om Tat Sat. Om Tat Sat. Om Tat Sat. Now what? Now we will have some break. We will have chutti. Lot of festivals are coming up. On 15th we have our Independence Day. Then on 19th there is Janmashtami. And after that on Monday, 22nd of August, we will begin with a new text, a Upanishad. We will study a beautiful Upanishad called the Chandogya Upanishad. Chandogya Upanishad, with Adi Shankaracharya's commentary. There are actually 8 chapters are there. So we will be studying 6th, 7th, and 8th chapter. The 3 chapters convey the supreme knowledge. There are these English translations are also available. Chandogya Upanishad with Bhagwan Shankaracharya's English translation. Very good translation by Swami Nikhilananda. This book is published by Advaita Ashram, Ramakrishna Ashram. It's a good book. Then there is this by Gita Press with Sanskrit and Hindi translation. Sanskrit Bhashya of Adi Shankaracharya ji with English, with Hindi translation. I will be using this book. So you get your books also ready. You can order online. And we will then begin the study of Chandogya Upanishad from 22nd of August. But before that, we will meet probably on 19th to celebrate Janmashtami. So till then, you take care, be happy, safe, peaceful, healthy, do your work, do your sadhana, and listen to the Bhagavatam again and again, and share this with your friends. You subscribe to my YouTube channel and share it with your friends and relatives so that more and more people are benefited from these studies. Okay? So we will meet again on 19th, same time, 12 to 1, and celebrate Janmashtami. Though Bhagwan was born at midnight, but we will celebrate his Janma in the afternoon. Okay? So till then, you take care, be happy, safe, peaceful, healthy, do your work, do your sadhana, and see you on Janmashtami. Om Tat Sat, Om Tat Sat, Om Tat Sat. Shri Ram Jaya Ram Jaya Jaya Ram. 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 Jaya Jaya Ram, Jaya Jaya Ram, Bole Sri Ramchandra Bhagwan ki Jai. ओम पूर्णमदः पूर्णमिदं पूर्णात् पूर्णमुदच्यते पूर्णस्य पूर्णमादाय पूर्णमेवावशिष्यते। ओम शांति शांति शांति। हरि ओम। श्री गुरुभ्यो नमः। हरि ओम।